Hello, good morning and welcome. My name is Alison Ettridge and I run a business called Talent Intuition, and I'm here today to chair a panel with some amazing women. Really looking forward to the session this morning. The Women in Innovation campaign was launched in 2016 to address the underrepresentation of women engaging with Innovate UK, to get more women with excellent ideas innovating in UK businesses and to boost the economy. Through the Women in Innovation Awards, which were established by Innovate UK, at least £1 million will be provided to pioneering female entrepreneurs to develop innovations. And in this session, we will meet Women in Innovation Award holders and hear how they are tackling societal, economic, and environmental challenges with their businesses. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the women. Rita, perhaps you could start and tell the audience about yourself.
Hi, Alison, and thank you so much for inviting me along today. I'm a mother of three and the founder of Explore Realms. We're building a metaverse of culturally nuanced, 3D immersive educational mobile games aimed at 7 to 14-year-olds.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Rita. An absolute pleasure to meet you. Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Pomfret, everyone. I'm co-founder of Financial, which is a female-focused financial wellness platform that's designed to help women take control of their money and be financially well. And I guess one of the hero products that we produced was the Couch to 5K for Money, so helping people with a step-by-step plan. And it's great to be here and to share a little bit of our innovation journey with you all today.
Fab. Look forward to hearing more. Thanks, Laura. Winnie.
Hello. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm building Kara, which is a next generation technology platform that is personalizing hair care for the world's fast growing multicultural population.
Fantastic. Thanks, Winnie. And last but absolutely by no means least, Helen.
Hi everyone, I'm Helen. I'm founder and the CEO of Anteam. I'm also a mother of two young children. Anteam was actually inspired by my young son's passion for the ants community in our garden. And Anteam, ant team. So the reason I founded Anteam is really during lockdown, I observed the excessive delivery kind of vehicles on the road. One day there were 4 delivery vans dropped 4 parcels into my house on the same day from the same retailers. So imagine the carbon footprint, the pollution, and the traffic congestion. So when my son dragged me to observe the ants with him, I thought, hey, look at those ants. They work together as a community to move things around. Why don't we use our technology to unlock the logistic capacity within our community? Here is the Anteam. I have experience in creating a business to reduce wind energy costs using digital innovation. So let's do something about our logistics. That's me. Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I love that, Helen. I love the idea of us all being ants. So female ants are ruling the world for today. And yeah, if I look at the chat, amazing women, and we've only just started is the first comment in chat. So to the audience, please do post comments in chat. If you want to use the Q&A and you want to ask some questions through to the panel, please also do that. We will all try and observe it so that if I'm not on it enough, we'll make sure we're answering the questions. Okay, so the purpose of today's session is really for the audience to get to know the individuals that we have on the screen and to hear more about you. And so, Rita, perhaps I can start by posing the first question to you and say, what would you say are the biggest challenges that you are currently facing?
I think as a fairly early stage startup, I'd say that 3 of the biggest challenges are how we scale and grow the company at this stage. We've got a fair amount of traction. We've got a fair amount of media coverage, a number of grants. So one is scaling, and that would be in the form of recruiting the key hires, so finding and retaining the right people. It is something that's quite critical at this stage for us. And also, I think the other sort of related issue would be around when to raise investment. At what point do you sort of give some equity away and sort of take on smart money and the right investors? So they're probably the key things, key challenges that we're facing right now.
Really interesting. And Helen, perhaps you can join in the conversation and talk about some of the challenges that you faced with Ant Team.
Yeah, I mean, there are two folds in terms of the challenges. One fold is really what challenge are we solving as an team? I mean, the first thing is really climate change is everyone's challenge now. And I feel that we all want to do something about it. The CO2 emission actually in transport is the highest among other sectors in the UK and the US. So I want to tackle this challenge. So at this moment, we are living in this donut economics with this social foundation and ecological ceiling. So our demand for logistics is growing, but we can't just let it grow linearly. More vehicles, more warehouses, more carbon footprints, more pollution. So the real challenge here for all of us is how can we satisfy the growing demand without creating a damaging effect on our planet? This is where Anteam, the challenge Anteam is trying to solve. And we want to use innovation to solve this rather than just linear growth. So that's the challenge we're trying to solve as Anteam. Then talk about the challenge of me setting up the business. Gosh, it's a long journey, is it? It happens so quickly. And I used to work for a company. I would call myself as an entrepreneur rather than entrepreneur before I set up that team. But then once I left the company, starting my own business and team, I have to learn everything like from the ground. And this is where what I would suggest everyone in the audience. I mean, if you want to start this kind of new business, the best thing you would get is to get help and support from everyone around you, from government agency. There are lots of support from my local region, the agency, innovation agency in the UK. So get those support. That will accelerate you so much. I feel like Anteam definitely benefit from those support to set up the business.
Really helpful, Helen. Thank you. And Laura, perhaps you can talk about the challenges that you've faced in the business as well in setting up the business. That would be fab.
Well, the first one was getting a product live without a tech team. So we knew that our financial playbook, which was the core product that was helping people, needed to be in a digital format. And so when we finally got that in the App Store, and it's in the App Store, it's a free app with a paid upgrade. We did that, and that was such a big challenge. And you think, oh, we've solved all our problems, but the challenges just keep coming, and it is a roller coaster. But a positive one, because you learn. So, for example, at the moment, we're in the process of raising capital, and that means convincing other people that your business idea is amazing, it's innovative, it's going to be a success. We face challenges on the fact that we're focusing on women, we're female focused. We have lots of white middle-aged men asking us why we're not helping men too. And so sometimes the investors we see on the other side of the table, it becomes a challenge for us sometimes to convince them of the problem that we're solving and how we're building a solution to it. It's got much better. We've hopefully got a really supportive team of male and female advocates that are going to be on our cap table. But yeah, I think that's been one of the biggest challenges recently has been not the self-doubt about your product because of a potential investor's view.
And there's something about framing that value proposition, isn't there, so that it sings to everybody without it, and keeping it still singing to you. Winnie, your value proposition is awesome. What challenges have you faced?
Of course. I mean, by the very definition of what we're doing, it's a huge undertaking because we fundamentally believe that everybody should have access to affordable expert advice when it comes to their hair care, which is adjacent to their health, really. We see so many studies being conducted around multicultural beauty, inclusivity, and the fact that actually the products that exist in the market are toxic to the health. So our whole approach, which, us delivering this is going to be a huge feat, is that we believe that actually we can personalize this, and we're personalizing this experience utilizing data. I absolutely echo what a lot, everybody said on the panel this morning, from fundraising through to hiring, those are certainly things that we've experienced on a journey. What I'd like to flag specifically on our perspective is we're creating a new way of experiencing beauty and healthcare. And the biggest challenge for us is like having that end vision and then flexing in the middle to essentially get there. So it's like where you're going does not change, but actually in the middle, experimenting a lot, seeking customer feedback a lot, really trying to understand and make sure that what we're delivering is exactly how the customer wants to experience our platform. And I would say that that has been the most, it is challenging, but at the same time, it's fulfilling because it means I get to speak to customers a lot, and nothing brings me more joy than actually knowing or reading customer feedback and knowing that we're on the right track.
We talk a lot, Winnie, about sailing to a destination. So the destination is the same, but the way that you get there is you have to tack because you have to go with what the winds are doing.
Absolutely. I couldn't have picked a better metaphor.
And sometimes it's frustrating, right? Because the winds are not blowing the way that you want them to blow.
If your sails are going in weird directions, you're like, wait, hang on a second, what's going on? But absolutely, I relate to that.
We've got there's a lady in the chat, a lady called Wendy Thompson. Wendy, I just want to shout out what you've said, because you've written, it does make me feel that my small business is not so exciting, but still I'd like to call it innovative. And I just wanted to get the panel's views on that comment. Who wants to go first?
Oh, could I jump in, Alison? It's Laura. My business started on Instagram 3 years ago as an anonymous Instagram account because I was worried about how people in my life would think how I thought about money and what my views were. And it grew from that small acorn. And so we then are in this moment where we're defining how big we want to be. And it's up to us to decide that we don't have to build a unicorn and we don't have to build a 400 strong team if we don't want to, because when you meet a need and solve a problem or provide a really good service to someone, that is a business. And so, yeah, I would say innovation comes from very technical and scientific solutions, or it comes from a really simple meeting a customer need, for sure.
Love that. Reader.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what Laura said, because, when I started our concept, so the problem we were tackling was, education is too exam driven. BAME and vulnerable neurodiverse children were sort of 18 months behind learning compared to their peers. And, it started off really small. I never thought I'd get to this stage. And if I had sort of been clear that, I have to get from zero to where I want to get to immediately, that would have been quite overwhelming. But I think sort of breaking it down into small iterative stages, and I really, what Winnie was saying really resonates, that we've done so much kind of co-design with our Border Brilliant Brains, with children, user testing, iterating, not being fixed on the idea. And that's really how it's grown and developed. So I think the seed has to be small and it will just grow organically. So I wouldn't let the size of an idea stop, because you just don't know where it will take you.
I love what you've just said. I talk a lot about, I used to think that innovation was a product or a thing, and actually it isn't a product or a thing. It's an idea, and that might be an idea that makes something better or meets a customer need, or does. And I think that particularly as women, we can get stuck on, well, I'm not a scientist and I can't invent something. And so, Wendy, I hope that those answers have provided a little bit of inspiration for you that says if it's innovative, then that's fab. And do not give up, whether it's 10 years or 20 years. That would be fantastic. We've had a comment as well. Forgive me, I can't see your first name, but MC Furkovic. Sorry if I have pronounced that. Love how user-centered design and user research has been mentioned so much. Just really.
I would like to say one other thing on that point. So when I was starting out, I'm a non-technical founder, so it was really daunting, the idea of setting up like a technical mobile games company with educational content. And I just reached out to Stanford University. I'm not an alumni or anything like that. And one of the mentors there sort of said to me, don't get carried away with the end product. Just build what you want to build now, but you must be user-led. You must be informed by your end user or your client base. So I really can't emphasize that enough.
And that's interesting. Helen, did you have a tech background?
Yes, I do. And I think, yeah, it's absolutely right. It has to be user-led. And I still remember that there was once I developed there was once I was at the meeting trying to showing off this bleeding edge software that we just released. And so the customer was quite impressed. And after the meeting, the customer was saying, the software is brilliant, but we don't have a people as technical as yourself to be able to use it. So that was like a penny drop moment, thinking, oh my gosh, we just developed a brilliant software that only expert can use it. But the way we work around it is kind of course, we keep developing the software, improve the user kind of centric aspect. But at the same time, we kind of packed our bag back to the office. Then the next meeting, we proposed, how about we use a software to help you to monitor your wind farms. So that's the other kind of thing about in the business, sometimes pivoting as well is important. But yeah, that's another story.
But actually, isn't it amazing? So we've got 4 of this year's Women in Innovation Award winners and me. So there are five of us here, all running tech businesses. None of us started out this journey as coders. And so I hope that that's a really important message. I surprise myself every day that I am running a software business, right? And so I think that's really important. All of us should make sure that that message comes out. We are such an untapped source of innovation that's design-led, user-led, and ideas-led. It's fantastic. Let me move on to another question, because you're all running amazing businesses. And Helen, you've touched a little bit on the challenge that you were solving through environmental challenges. Winnie, can you talk about the challenge that you are solving? So what's the societal challenge? Because I love the idea of Cara, and it's something that I couldn't have related to actually until I read your story.
Absolutely. I'd love to share that. So I think where we really need to start from is defining textured hair. And textured hair or multi-textured hair encompasses everything from, wavy to the tightest of curls, such as mine. And contrary to what people might think, actually, according to the UN, we have about 65% of the world's population that are multicultural and most likely have textured hair. The challenge that we have here is threefold. One, the existing solutions in the market do not cater for this huge growing population. And we have, this population spending 78% more than people with straight hair. And the existing solutions that actually exist for them have been studied to have toxic ingredients impacting endocrine systems, reproductive systems, and our whole raison d'etre as it is to create personalized regimes and personalized product recommendations for our consumers, for our community, because we believe in this idea of providing the guidance that is required to support them so that they stop spending so much time and so much money. At the heart of what we're really doing is empowering people. It's helping them feel seen. And, you can't put, a price tag on that feeling. People often think hair is just hair, but it isn't just hair. It impacts every sphere of our lives, from our professional careers to our own mental health as well. So what we're really trying to do, or what we're focusing on, is bringing that inclusivity to the beauty industry, solving the challenges around health impacts by bringing transparency to this space, and most importantly, helping people navigate a hugely overwhelming industry.
Fantastic, thank you. Reader, talk about some of the educational challenges that you saw and how that drove Explore rounds.
So it started off, it was a very personal experience. I've got 3 children, and my boys in particular really struggled with homework and revision, and we had tutors, and we, doing a lot of things that many parents do. And it just got to a point where I had to, homeschool them for a while. And I was kind of studying with my son and trying to make him understand the relevance of what he's learning to his life in the future. He was 10 or 11 at the time. And so we would study for 45 minutes, and then he'd go off and have a break of his choice. And there was a huge game called Fortnite. I'm sure some of the members of the audience will have suffered at the hands of Fortnite and lost thousands in V-Bucks, no doubt. And when I was exposed to Fortnite, I was just blown away with how creative and immersive it was. And I could see how addicted children were to it. And I just couldn't understand why the education system wasn't teaching children through these popular mediums. And I just assumed somebody would be out there doing something like this. So I didn't sort of set out to build like a educational games company at all. So I researched for about 3-4 months. I came across Minecraft and lots of other games, but there was nothing that was fully aligned with the British national curriculum. There was nothing that would reach hard to reach communities and those kind of vulnerable BAME neurodiverse communities that were behind their peers. And this was all pre-COVID. So I came up with the idea. I built it in small stages, because for me, the idea of developing a technical business was really, really daunting. So I just broke it down into the stages that I needed. First, the curriculum content, the visualization, and then the technical development. And then COVID happened, BLM happened, and there was just this huge heightened interest in what we were doing. And what we've inadvertently developed is a range of educational games that condense 12 weeks of term time learning into about 2 hours of fun, fast gameplay, which we didn't set out to do, but because we've had users at the heart of everything we do, and we play test almost every week. We were at a school yesterday and 2 schools last week. We're constantly getting feedback. And as a result of that, being in the schools, we're getting feedback from teachers who also want gamified lesson planning, which is something we're working on as well.
Love that. Laura, you're addressing another challenge in its own right. So talk perhaps about the challenge that you're addressing through Financial.
Sure. So we didn't set out to solve a problem for females at first, actually. So that's interesting. I think it was a core concept, which was let's focus on financial wellness and not wealth. The world is obsessed with get rich quick. The world is obsessed with hitting big milestones, the £1 million net worth, whatever it be. It was so out of so many people's reach and most normal people's reaches that they weren't doing anything positive for their financial wellness. And so we came up with a concept, Holly and I, my co-founder, which was if you focus on wellness, not wealth, you can feel more financially well in 10 minutes with a little bit of education, with a little bit of an action, and you can build on that, and that will snowball. And eventually you probably will be wealthy or in a much more healthier financial position than when you started, but you've not felt like you have to go and become a qualified financial advisor to do that. You can kind of handle the basics one step at a time. So it was only when our demographic really came out as more positively female and we got under the skin of how financial products are built. For example, pensions are built on average lifespan, which is fine for the man because they don't live as long as us. But we live longer. So even the pension systems that we all have, they're already working against us because they're invested on the basis that we'll live an average lifespan. And also that banks were built by men for men, and so the way that they are delivered and positioned, products are positioned to women is the same as men. And it's not to say that women are a homogenous bunch, but we just kept seeing these issues that cropped up. Then in society, there's a 1.65 trillion pound gender pension gap in the UK, meaning that when a woman gets to retirement, she on average will have £100,000 less in her pension than a man. And you have to try and unpick that and think, why, gender pay gap? Or is it because they've had time off with children, or they've gone part-time, or they're not as confident? So what we try and do is combine lifestyle content, so not money content, not trying to ram finances down people's throats. But if we can inspire women with relative content, relatable community members, and so they can meet other women in their position, then they can start their money journey and not feel like they have to know the world on day one. They can start with something small and build up to it. And that's the problem that we're solving. And it probably won't be solved in our lifetime, but we hope that we'll do our bit towards, improving it.
Really interesting. Please keep putting questions in the chat space. Rita's being brilliant, so she's answering some of them. I will make sure that we bring them out in the forum and in the panel as well. So either put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We're watching out for them. So we're on you. And Winnie, thank you also to contributing to the chat. It helps me a lot. I'm interested in finding out. So we've identified kind of what was the challenge, whether it was societal or environmental or economic, that you were solving. I'm interested in understanding what was the point at which each of you went, and now I'm going to do something about that. Helen, you've talked about Ant Team and the deliveries on 4 deliveries on the same day. What then made you go, no, this is it, I'm going to do something about this?
Yeah, it's kind of it's almost like a light bulb moment in a sense. I was worried. It's a problem that I think just constantly playing in my mind. And I was thinking there has to be a better way. I used to kind of develop artificial intelligence, work on those algorithms. I'm thinking why the logistic industry is not fully utilize those innovation, those technology. So because it's constantly playing in my mind, so when my son dragged me to watch the ants, I mean, it's boring. Don't get me wrong. I don't share the same passion with him, unfortunately. But I was just trying to be encouraging, be polite. So finally, I have this silent moment to observe the ants, kind of how they transport goods. And funny enough, it's just at that moment, because it was during lockdown, so we don't hear many traffic on the road. There was a car just driven by. And when I heard that car, I was thinking, that car could be perfect to drop that parcel instead of that delivery van. So that's the moment kind of suddenly the light bulb switch on. And then I was thinking, yeah, let's kind of try to mimic ants, trying to use the community spirits from ants, and trying to use technology to unlock the kind of capacity in our community and trying to move goods around instead. That will help us to reduce the CO2, reduce the pollution, to solve the traffic congestion. And that's the moment. I guess the key thing is that's a problem you really want to solve. And I'm sure if you really want to solve it, and there will be a moment that suddenly you think, hey, let's try to solve that way. And we were quite fortunate that as soon as I founded Ant Team, we won an award from the Department for Transport under the decarbonization to help us quickly develop the artificial intelligence prototype to prove that the technology works. But the next challenging thing is actually to tackle human behavior. This is kind of why I'm here and still trying to solve the problem. But yeah, we are still on the journey.
But that's interesting that there was a definite light bulb moment for you. Winnie, did you have a light bulb moment, or did something sort of just sort of grow in your mind until you went, yes, I'm going to do something? You're on mute, Winnie. Sorry. There you go.
The favorite phrase. Yes, my journey actually started with another platform that I started, which was an e-commerce platform. And to echo, I think it was Wendy that was talking about how she felt like her vision was small. I think this is also related to that, because really I started from, I have this problem, everybody around me has this problem, let's create an e-commerce platform to solve it. But actually, in doing that, I grew such a huge thriving community of around 20,000 people. And they kept telling us the same thing. Even though there were these products on the shelf, they were absolutely struggling. And what they needed wasn't more products. What they needed was personalized guidance and education. And for me, again, it goes back to this idea of listening to customers, talking to them, co-creating with them. For me, it was through that and joining the dots on everything that I had done so far and coming to the realization that, hang on a second, there is a way to solve this in a more sustainable way. There is a way to make this experience better for every single person so that they're not wasting so much time, money, effort.
Brilliant. There's a lot of talk in chat at the moment, particularly about what to do. So getting onto some advice, and I'll come on to some advice in a minute, but I think just before we go there, I think it would be really interesting to explore, what do you think were the challenges that as a woman business leader you you've managed to overcome. And Rita, you've talked about imposter syndrome in here. Perhaps you could start by expanding on imposter syndrome so that the rest of the audience know what you mean and you're referring to, and then we can grow that out as a conversation.
Yeah, sure. I think for me, and I think it's important to be really honest about some of the personal challenges you face as a founder, because if you kind of erase those, you're not dealing with the full journey. And for me, the idea of I've run a number of businesses in the creative industries. I was a consultant in culture, heritage, education, skills-led regeneration, working with government in the UK and the Middle East. I'm a qualified barrister. So, I on the face of things, I'm a confident, high-achieving person. But actually, when it came to running my own business and starting this up, it just seemed impossible. It felt like, well, who am I to be doing this? I'm not a gamer. I'm not a technical founder. I'm just a regular person who's come up with an idea that seems like a common sense thing to do. And for a long time, I can't remember who it was. It may have been Laura who mentioned that, or someone, that we downplay things, and there is this difference in the way men behave and the way women behave. But I don't think that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. It worked for me being quite modest and quite private about what I was doing. I didn't want to be in the public domain. I really wanted to focus on the curriculum content, the visualization, the technical development of the prototype, before sort of going into the public domain, as it were. And the way I tackled that kind of lack of self-belief, I remember recording 1 or 2 videos where I just thought, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm pouring all my savings, all my salary into this. Like, what on earth am I thinking? Again, as my long-suffering husband has witnessed me run a number of businesses, although he thinks this one is a really good one. And the way I overcame that was I just, in fact, yesterday was listening to a number of podcasts on the Enter the Arena platform. So they're all stories by female founders that are, different stages of business, different industries. And I found that really helpful and inspiring, because when you hear the challenges that other women are going through, you realize you're not alone. And those challenges are quite different to the challenges men face, because there've been debates around, well, should we even mention that we're female founders? Why are we just not founders? And I do embrace the fact that I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a woman, I'm of diverse heritage. These are challenges that I have to deal with, but they're also huge positive elements to my kind of richer experience and the way I tackle things. And the other thing I did was, I am a bit of an accelerator junkie. So I constantly attend accelerators. So the first accelerator I attended was Hatch Female Founders. So that was really good for early stage concept, ideation. And then Google for Startups, Educate. So there's so many accelerators that are all free. I can't recommend them enough. And they will, give you access to funding. They will mentor you. They will give you coaching. So that's how I tackled it.
Super. And I want to come back. So as we go around the panel, I want to come back because I want to end with what's a piece of advice that you would give to people. So I'll park the accelerator and say, brilliant, we'll use that later. Helen, what were the challenges that as a woman business leader you've managed to overcome?
I think Rita just mentioned, I think for us, there are 2 sides. One is internal, which is we just talked about imposter syndrome. The other one, I think Rita touched upon, is people's perception of women leaders. I have, because I worked in tech sector for decades, so I have attended many, many business meetings where people just took the assumption that I was there to support my male colleagues. I had to say that I almost started to enjoy the surprise of their face when I start to talk about the vision, the strategy of the business. I still remember that I had this conversation with a professor from Cambridge University. So after the meeting, we had a quite deep chat about how challenging it is for a female role model to stand out in a male-dominant environment. And at that time, unfortunately, we agreed that the only way for us women to stand out is we have to outperform our male colleagues. That was at that moment. The time is changing. I mean, I'm so pleased to see so many women take the leader's position, but it's still not enough. We still have glass ceiling there, and we need to keep pushing. So there's once actually I met a female founder, and she wasn't actually comfortable with all these campaigns around women. Her opinion is that that's just admitting that women, we need more support, we need more help. That just shows us being weak. I think she's a lucky one. I basically joked about the situation and said, until one day we started to have news like, oh, that company CEO is actually a man. That's the time we might start thinking, oops, we have overdone it. But now I think we just keep pushing it. That's my view on this.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, there's a piece of advice in chat that I would echo. As women in a male-dominated world running tech businesses particularly, we stand out. And as women in innovation award winners, we stand out. So maximise the opportunity that is associated with that. Laura, we haven't heard from you for a while, forgive me. So you've talked about the value proposition being a challenge for you and trying to explain to an audience that wasn't who your audience is why it was different. What other challenges have you faced as a female founder?
Well, one challenge has been initially a technical gap. So a learning gap when it comes to tech businesses, how they work. They're not like legacy businesses. They're not traditional. They tend to need capital to be able to reinvest and to scale and to pay for tech, which is just becoming eye-wateringly expensive. But it's something that we overcome quite quickly, surrounding yourself with people who do know what they're doing, who've done it before, asking questions, challenging people. If you don't understand something, saying, I'm really sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about, but then taking the time to try and learn it rather than just moving on means we've actually broken down a lot of barriers. Another challenge has been actually the corporate landscape. So I was previously a corporate lawyer, so I can hold my own, but the acronyms and the jargon that's used in tech startup raising language, some of the most sophisticated friends I have no idea what I'm talking about. And that's been a learning curve. But I think the point is, you can overcome everything. There's usually a person, a place, a website that will help. If you're willing to have a little look, you demyth it. I tell you a challenge I don't have. Women at home have way more share of unpaid labor than men. I don't have that problem at home. I have a really supportive husband who shares the workload with me. We split it equally. We support each other's careers. And we've been doing some work with Pension Bee recently on the pension gap. And they believe one of the biggest issues is the volume of unpaid labour that women do with children, with parents, and around the home. So it's not an even playing field. And with enough business challenges, what I would encourage people to do is really look at their home situation. And are you investing in yourself in terms of your health, your fitness, your sleep, and your relationships to make sure that you can tackle these big business challenges? Because if you've not got that sorted, you've got an uphill battle for sure.
And there's a lot of research around that that says actually women are still doing a lot more of the unpaid work at home. And
even if they're the higher earner, Alison, even if they're the higher earner, they still tend to do far more than their partner, whatever the gender.
And there's something you said then that really resonated with me. I remember sitting in the first meetings when we were building product and listening to the tech team and saying, every single one of those words that you said was English, but I have absolutely no idea what that sentence meant from A to B. So can you help me? And I think as women, when we start to say, I don't understand, can you help me? Then opportunities come. Winnie, you're nodding.
Yes, 100%. I 100% resonate, especially with what Rita says around owning our differences. I think someone also mentioned that in the chat. I'm a Black African woman who has spent her formative years here in the UK. That is a clear point of difference. And that means that I bring something very, very unique to the table. And I think it's incredibly important to remember that when we're building, I think particularly in the tech space, we're used to seeing the likes of Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, these men who have built, admittedly, these platforms that are huge and have impacted the way we interact with technology. But I think that as women, it's okay to lean in on, our differences. It's okay to lean in on what makes us different, but because that's what helps us build things that the world has not seen before. And, you know, your point around asking questions when we don't know, I actually think is super critical when you're building tech, because, you know, there's a tendency to just kind of like in my career, my background is actually on product. So I spent time at Net-a-Porter, ASOS, LVMH, and there's something that we used to call, you know, don't quickly rush to productionize the problem. And that's essentially don't rush to just slap a solution on it. Spend some time to try and understand what the problem is. And I think a key strength that particularly non-technical founders bring to the table is asking. And then, you know, essentially coercing your more technical counterparts to explain to you in a way their grandma would understand, in a way that their you know, in a way that customers absolutely get. So I think that that's 100% a huge strength. And to top it off with the point around imposter syndrome, I think there's so much research around, you know, women facing imposter syndrome, and sometimes I actually wonder, like, are we internalizing too much of that? Because surely everybody goes through moments of self-doubt when they're building something of such huge undertaking. So it's a challenge to us. So like, I also challenge myself, you know, are we over internalizing this idea of imposter syndrome? And to what extent is that, you know, either enabling or harming us? It's an open question.
I do think that's a really important point. So for me, it was one of so many other challenges. It's not something that stopped me or held me back. Like, okay, that's one more challenge. I've dealt with that. Well, now I've got to raise the investment. Well, I've raised the investment. I've dealt with that. And I've got to develop the product. I've raised the product. And I think the point that Winnie's made is a really, really important one around being a non-technical founder has been a huge advantage, because having a technical team means they're there to develop the product. But actually, I'm the end user, I'm the parent, and, you know, the average, you know, layperson who will be using this, who is not a hardcore gamer. Lots of our user group are not sort of seasoned gamers, and you bring lots of common sense kind of insight and querying and an inquiry-based approach to how you develop the product, and that point around just staying with the problem for a while and thinking it through. So there was one person who offered me a lot of investment very early on, 2 years ago, and he said, you know, fail fast or grow fast, whatever you do it fast. And actually my instinct was, I'm not in a rush. I need to understand the problem. I need to understand who my user group is and the permutations of the solutions before I rush into the tech. So there was a good 10 months with kind of staying with the problem and trying to really thrash it out before we then went into technical development phase. So I think Winnie's point's a really, really powerful one.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's so interesting. Yeah, there are 5 female founders of tech businesses here, all of whom have talked about user and product and challenge and common sense. Yeah. Now we've got 2 minutes left, so we are going to have to speed through this. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds each at the most. One piece of advice that you would give or inspiration to anyone who's coming into or thinking about applying for this program. Helen.
Yes, my one piece of advice is being authentic. I think that's a key thing to be a leader, as well as to be a role model for other women. If we are authentic, embrace our identity, and embrace our style, I think we will be able to make more impacts on more women and encourage more women to join us.
Fantastic. Thank you. Laura.
I think be prepared to go all in, because, you know, you have to prioritize business, you have to prioritize home, and this program, the access it gives you, the network it gives you. Network's been the single biggest thing that's got our startup to where it is, and this is an extension of that network with some amazing people and fellow founders. So what's the point of that if you're not going to go all in?
Perfect. Love that. Rita.
I think on a more specific, narrow point towards the application itself, I would say to female applicants, sort of embrace whatever sort of personal challenges you're facing, overcome them, raise your profile in advance so that when you're submitting your application, there is a video that you've got to demonstrate that you have inspired, you have mentored, that you are active, you are there to kind of raise other women up as well. So on a practical note, and really do your homework, do your market research when preparing that grant.
And Winnie.
From my perspective, I would say trust your gut. don't disqualify yourself before you've even come to the table. If you have an idea that you're trying to build, trust your guts, go forward, you'll thrive.
I love that. So what I hope, the purpose of this session was really to make sure that the audience could meet Women in Innovation Award holders, hear how they're addressing challenges, and to inspire other people. We have seen 4 amazing role models on here. I think I'm going to add network. There are some fantastic men out there who are willing to support you as much as there are fantastic women. So use them. There's a really big opportunity for you. And so my piece of advice would be, don't let confidence stop you doing it. Because if you've got a great idea, the worst thing that will happen is it won't work. The best thing that will happen is you'll make a difference. I really hope that session's been brilliant. Thank you so much to Rita El Shai, Helen Xiaoqin-Ma, Laura Pomfret, and Winnie Awa. If you haven't been and had a look at the websites, please visit Cara, Ant Team, Explore Realms, and Financial and Stratagens. So please make sure that you go ahead and you visit the websites. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.